I think what's difficult um, about all of this is a lot of times if you're coming in, you don't necessarily know what to do if somebody's not guarding you, right? The only thing you think to do is if you get the ball, just to shoot it. And unfortunately, that's kind of what the defense is wanting you to do. They're kind of leaving you there to because that's what they want to give up. So, for instance, with this play, we've got Jay Wash at the top of the key, and like I had mentioned, it's kind of a stagger type of situation with I think that's Elliott setting the first screen and Drake's the second screener. So as RJ comes off, his Drake being the second screener, his man is more than likely going to be the tag guy, which is what we call the guy that helps on the big that's rolling. So as RJ comes off this stagger, and then he comes off the ball screen, the big is going to roll and he's probably going to get behind his defender. So what that means is now the tag guy has to get all the way in there to tag him. So if you want to push it forward just maybe one. So you see how the big is rolling. Now Drake's guy is all the way underneath Jay Wash in the paint, right? And they've got two guys once again like I had mentioned before, they've got two guys chasing RJ at all times. So the one thing you have to give up is a Drake 3, which in this situation it seemed like the coach was wanting to give up. So if you click it one more, you see kind of where his defender ends up being and where he is, right? So, okay, yes, do I want Drake to step into this shot confidently and knock it down 100%? I will always be a proponent of, hey, even if you're considered a non-shooter, you have to keep them honest at some stage of the game, right? You've got to shoot one or two, maybe three of them. And if you make one or you make two of them, then now they can't necessarily tag all the way down by the charge circle. So you have that. So then what are the adjustments to this, right? Because you don't want to see this all season. You want to see, some of the issues that we had with Leaky a few years ago was okay, now he's just on the perimeter, but his guy is able to help wherever he needs to help. So what are some of the adjustments? So now the next clip, you have RJ coming off and Drake is in the corner. And if you see it for the people that are watching, if you look and see where Drake's man is helping, I mean, he's not worried about Drake at all, right? Honestly, and even Elliott's defender isn't really worried about him either. So you have defense basically being able to key in on RJ in this whole pick and roll without any kind of repercussions, at least in their mind, because Drake is just out on the perimeter. Well, if you run it one more click, instead of Drake just sitting there in the corner, now you cut and you force your guy to have to make a decision. Like, am I going to stay with this role guy or am I going to have to guard Drake because he's cutting to the basket for an easy layup and easy dunk? Well, the great read that Drake made, now RJ makes a great pass, boom, it's a dunk. Now the defense has to make a decision of, hey, are we going to help as much as we're helping? Or are we going to continue to kind of give this up because now they've made an adjustment as opposed to just guys just sitting on the perimeter? And I think in the second half, they had kind of the same situation, the same play. This time it was Jay Witt being in the corner. Elliott was up top. And if you run it one more clip, they swing it over to Elliott. Elliott has the ball. He's coming off of a pick and roll. Now Jay Witt's man is all the way in the charge circle waiting to help on the roll guy and Jay Wash. All it takes is one cut, boom, Elliott sees it. It's an alley-oop dunk. Now the defense has to make even more adjustments, right? Like that's kind of what you have to be able to do if you have some guys that teams don't necessarily respect. Do I respect Drake as a shooter? I think Drake can be a really, really good spacer. But right now, when it comes to the numbers and maybe what the other teams are wanting to give up as opposed to other things, that's kind of what they're looking to give up. So if you can make certain adjustments when it comes to that, as opposed to just sitting on the perimeter, I think that's what you kind of see the lulls in their offense a lot of times is it's just guys kind of standing five out around the perimeter. And whenever it comes down to 10 seconds on the shot clock, now guys have to go one on one. It causes tough shots for guys like RJ, Ian, Elliott, and then teams are able to get out in transition if it's a bad shot. So making those kind of adjustments, I think, is going to be key for this offense because then it just completely changes the way that the defense can guard as well, and it leaves more space for Jay Wash rolling more effectively. It leaves more space for RJ to come off that and maybe not be able to be doubled because now all it takes is one advanced pass and they're in rotations. So there's just a bunch of different little things that they can make, and I think if they do that, I think it can kind of change the way this offense looks.
A couple of notes from me. First of all, if you're listening to us on podcast, we appreciate you listening. We just did a little bit of a film breakdown there that our YouTube viewers got to check out. So this is a great excuse for you to pop on the YouTube channel after you're done walking your dog or driving, whatever you might be doing, listening to our show here, and check out some more of this film breakdown to see some of these visuals. I'm going to pull up one more little example here from this clip of the Jay Witt dunk. Something that stands out to me here, number one, really, really great pass by Elliot Cadeau, because when you freeze it right here, it does not look like anyone's open. So when we talk about Elliot being a great passer and a basketball genius, he's throwing this ball basically before Jay Witt has even left the three-point line. So he has to know that it's a safe pass to make, but also he has to know exactly where to place it, knowing the athleticism of his teammate. So an excellent pass there. And I think it brings up one more point for me, which is I really want to see UNC's bigs setting strong screens and then getting north and south. So in this case, it's Jalen Washington out there on the perimeter. He's setting the screen and then really driving hard to the basket, because that's what's opening up these driving lanes, the three-point shots. Um, UNC hasn't had that at all times this season, that consistent hard screening and then hard rolling to the basket. That's not necessarily something, you can be a little bit undersized and you can still roll really hard to the basket, and you can still set a really good screen as well. Another piece of this is, knowing where to go and some of the off-ball movement associated with that, the cutting that has to happen in order to get these open layups and dunks. So this brings up a question here from Sherelle. So I'll bring this question in. Friend of the program, Sherelle McMillan. Why do you think the off-ball movement isn't consistent this season, Justin?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think this is the first game that I've really seen a team start to kind of roam the low defender as the helper. Um, all season, I've really kind of seen, for the most part, them be able to play in kind of an open, a 4 out, 1 in, 5 out, open type spacing. And there's not really a clog man. And when I say clog man, kind of like what you're seeing in those pictures of somebody that's just, I mean, having a guy tag from somebody from the top of the key and be in the charge circle, that's an extreme example of somebody just kind of roaming and helping in any area that they possibly can. So I think when it comes to the movement, they haven't necessarily needed to do all of that movement. I mean, like we say, going into the ACC, their offense really wasn't the issue, right? Like their offense was, I want to say it was like top 20 in the country when it came to points per game, or, you know, I don't think that was necessarily an issue. Now that teams are starting to do this, and I think you're going to start seeing it more in the ACC, I think now you will start to see more consistent movement. The tough part about just random movement in a 5 out, 4 or a 4 out, 1 in type offense is a lot of times your movement can kind of clog things up even more. So you want to have guys spaced to the corner. You want to have guys spaced high and out on the wings, and you want to leave space for those actions to happen. But whenever you start to see these kind of adjustments, I think is kind of when you'll see guys cutting, or maybe you'll start seeing those type of guys. Those are the ones that are setting the screen because their guys are off their body, right? Like you'll start seeing little adjustments like that, I think, more now that these teams are making these adjustments. But up to this point, they didn't really need to. And so I think that's why you haven't seen it consistently throughout the year. But I think you'll start to see it, as this conference play continues.